That's right. The king is making his return to Tim's Nation. Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ, here with Tim's Nation, bringing my list that's going to be taking on Lane in our next battle report. And as the intro has hinted, the Silent King has returned. We are still running the Canoptek Court, but I am bringing the king this time. Those of you who have followed us thus far know that we got GTs coming up. It's spring. Allegedly, according to a calendar, it's spring, but if you live in Northeast Ohio and you looked outside, the snow might make you feel a little different. But aside from that, it is eventually going to warm up, and that's when we start traveling and doing a lot more tournaments, a lot more competition. Girls are getting older, starting to sleep through the night, so yes, I'm feeling comfortable and getting ready to get out there and start throwing with some of the best of them. Now, with this list, as you guys have known in the past, I have been trying to get Necrons rolling for me. Haven't felt very comfortable with them, but I am very comfortable with the data sheets. So I've been trying to see if there's anything that I would feel comfortable taking to a tournament instead of taking the Grey Knights. And we're back on that Canoptek Court, except this time I have tweaked it significantly. We are taking some of my ideas, changing the concepts and everything, and of course, obviously, bringing the Silent King. The Silent King being a little bit of a boost that I think is really going to help things like my Wraiths that are already very durable, very tough to take down, and now having a boost from the Silent King could be just what they need to push them over the top and make me feel more comfortable with Canoptek Court and Necrons playing in Pariah Nexus in current 10th edition. All right. Let's go take a look at this list, and then we'll come back and talk about what we think that some of this could do today. Once again, as advertised, here it is, the Canoptek Court. So this one's got a little more emphasis on court as we are bringing the king with this list. For those who don't know, the Canoptek Court is a detachment that gets reroll ones to hit. It can also have access to full rerolls to hit if you were in a Canoptek controlled node or the Canoptek Matrix, which is your home deployment zone. No man's land if you control at least half the objectives, or your opponent's deployment zone if you control the objective marker there. So we'll just jump right over into the list. Some of the things are very similar to previous lists with some tweaks and changes. And yeah, let's start with an old favorite. 3 Canoptek Doom Stalkers. Love these guys out of this detachment. The full rerolls to hit makes them very, very efficient. They have heavy on their big guns, as well as their ability to give them a Overwatch of 5 up is super, super strong with those full rerolls to hit. Makes these guys threatening in my turn and my opponent's turn. Love these guys. 4 up invuln. Makes them durable. They can end up tanking a lot more than they should. And the spiders nearby will be able to give them a 6 up Feel No Pain. Flat 3 damage on their gun. Makes them very nice at being able to damage tanks, vehicles, tougher things, as well as taking out infantry of all sizes. The only thing they kind of struggle into is like 4 wound things, where it's like they're soaking up 2 hits to take out 1 enemy. So that one is kind of their Achilles. So some things like Centurions and that, but otherwise a very good widespread, great backfield zoning and backfield control, and units that can usually hold backfield objective markers. Moving on, we do have our Canoptek Spiders. We're taking 3 solos this time. So I'm running with some of my theories from previous lists, but right now with the current shape of the meta and with how Pariah Nexus functions, my 2x3 for 6 spiders was not really doing the trick. Not quite durable enough without having an invuln, so some of the things that can hunt vehicles hunt these guys even worse because they're a 3 up save. So we came off that notion. Now these guys still shoot really, really hard. Into infantry and stuff like that, 2d6 shots with double blast because they're 2 independent guns, and they can fight for 5 attacks with like a power fist, basically strength 8 AP 2 damage. They give the aura for a 6 up Feel No Pain to all vehicle units and a 5 up Feel No Pain versus devastating and mortal wounds to all units. So these guys, I like them. Oh, they're going to also bring Scarabs back. We'll be talking about Scarabs in a little bit. I still like them. Especially out of Canoptek because they get the full rerolls to hit. But now since I brought them down, instead of taking the squadrons, I put them at singles. So now these guys are able to kind of float around, do secondaries, boost Doomstalkers and Silent Kings with the Feel No Pain, and just and complete actions and stuff like that without tethering the entire squad and letting me kind of decide, do I want to shoot with two? Am I going to shoot with one? We're going to shoot with none. We're going to shoot with all three. So allows me a little more separation, a little more spread, which is kind of, like I said before, issues I've had with secondaries in the past. So we'll jump over into their brethren, the Scarabs. So we take now three-man squads of Scarabs. Whew, that was tough to get out. So I was taking 6 before. I still like the Scarabs. But I want to be able to zone out the board so my opponent's not able to deep strike and get some speed on me, especially with some of my units that are going to need some time to kind of set up and score secondaries, and that the Scarabs will be able to zone those out. Scarabs are still able to do things like engage on all front and behind enemy lines, and theoretically could move up to my Wraiths and get in range of my Cryptex to get that OC1 to then complete other secondaries. Wraiths, Scarabs also explode to do roughly D3 or flat 3 mortal wounds onto a target, or roll a 1 and do absolutely nothing and just blow up. So there is that extra little bit of mortal wound impact damage. They do hit pretty hard in combat at 6 wounds, 6 attacks apiece. And with the Canoptek buff, being able to reroll the lethal on their attacks can actually chew through some stuff. But that's an if and then and when scenario. I did consider taking 1 as a 6. I feel like it was just going to get scraped off the field too easily. So we're just going to go with the 3s today. I think I'll still be able to get some decent damage out of these guys, even if only 2 of them are attacking because 1's blowing up. I think these guys can still clean up some units that are on objective markers and take that away. They do reduce OC by 1 to a minimal 1, so that can also help in OC2 targets and battle line units. But all in all, these guys are just going to help me kind of keep some more board coverage and control. And then I can put guys back with the spiders too. If just one Scarab base happens to run away to them, put some Scarabs back. So there's a little bit of play out of there, but this is going to be a lot more of my board coverage out of the spiders and the Scarabs, as well as zoning. Next up, we are bringing 2 Canoptek Reanimators. Now, I mentioned in the past that I wasn't a big fan of Canoptek Reanimators out of this detachment, just because the reanimation trigger out of this detachment is not the strongest of the dynasties. It triggers when you charge me, then I can trigger the reanimation. Not terrible, but not as easily timed out, especially because sometimes there's armies that just simply will not charge at all. But so that was kind of my thing with the reanimators. It's like you're not getting that additional trigger, so realistically the one you're looking at most is your just basic reanimation. Now, granted, there are things like the Resurrection Orb trick where we can take a Catacomb Command Barge and hit the Wraiths with that Res Orb as long as the Techno's with them, but there's no Catacomb in this list. So we're only doing the basic reanimation for the most part, unless we get charged. We're going to be doing that basic reanimation, and then we'll be able to get an additional reanimation, that D3, whenever we trigger that at the beginning of our phase. However, that's not exactly the entire reason I'm taking these guys. These guys are so durable. They are a 3-up save, but they have a 4-up feel no pain. These guys are tough to take down in annoying ways, where they hide behind a wall, start doing something like sabotage, and their opponent just can't take them down. They can't get enough onto them. Even with them only having 6 wounds, they just can't get enough onto them with that 4-up feel no pain. And then when they reanimation trigger, they basically go back up to full health because they reanimate and then they reanimate themselves. So a lot of ways, these guys are running self-sufficient in that secondary scoring game. However, being near the Wraiths, if the Wraiths lose 1 or 2 guys, we could end up getting those guys back and then having the Technomancer heal 1 to fix them back up. So there is some play with the reanimation protocols out of these guys, but it isn't as strong as some armies can do. But the big thing is how durable these guys are in being able to complete secondaries, which, as I've mentioned before, is a place where I struggle. Next up is our forefront, our battle line. That's not a battle line, but they're on the battle line. They're just not battle line. Hopefully that made sense. The Wraiths. We got 2 6-mans of the Wraiths. No Crypt Thralls in here, so we're not going with that extra level of durability. We're just taking the Wraiths with the Technos. The only enhancement out of this list today is going to be the Infiltrate enhancement on 1 squad of Wraiths, and that's going to be my ghostly looking guy. So let's talk about these a little bit. So Wraiths are, with the Techno, a toughness 6, a 3-up save, a 4-up invuln, 4 wounds apiece, 5-up feel no pain off the Techno. Yeah, they're durable. Very durable. They're fast. They can move over units and do mortal wounds to them as well. They have a flyby ability that they can use, which there's all sorts of tricks to get that to trigger. And they also have a little pistol on them that is 3 shots that have devastating wounds. So these guys have a couple different ways they can do damage. And then in combat, they're looking at Strength 6, AP 1, Flat 2 damage with the Vicious Claws and 4 attacks apiece. So we're going to kind of start to segue over into this. We're going to talk about a bit. Last game, one thing I specifically noticed, and this is something I've seen a couple times, that Strength 6 is kind of at a weird column. When we're trying to get on an objective, trying to take out some infantry, there are some T6 things like heavy intercessors that we cannot push through because we are wounding on 4s. It makes things a little rough. Now, we could do the enhancement that gives us reroll 1s to wound when we're in a Canoptek control node. But the problem is here with toughness 6 things like that, heavy intercessors being, they may be out objective controlling us and giving out OCing us on that objective, preventing us from having Canoptek control, or we may continue moving a little bit further. So it doesn't always work out too well there, and the flat 2 damage versus 3 wound guys makes it that we need more hits to go through to start weaning through them and picking them up. Now, with that being said, there's a couple things that the king does bring to these guys, and we're going to talk about him more in a bit. But I've noticed a lot of people have enjoyed and had success with Awakened Dynasty because there is a strat that allows you to get +1 strength when you're in combat. Now, there is also the way of getting a bonus AP on these guys, which is a significant boost too, but I'm hoping that the +1 strength can help a lot there. Not to mention the fact that the king also could give them reroll 1s to wound if so happen to be, if we're already stronger and we want to go into that, the king can go reroll 1s to wound with them for one of his auras and abilities as well. The Technos are able to heal, which is going to be really nice for a lot of different things like the Doomstalker, Spiders, and even the king himself, because the king will be nearby, that we can end up healing something for D3 wounds or healing a Wraith and bringing them back up as well. So, yeah, that's my Wraiths. And now, as I mentioned, here he is. You know him. You love him. The Silent King. So the Silent King is big. He's bulky. And last game, I ran a Nightbringer. Differences with him and Nightbringer. Nightbringer halves damage, and he has a 5-up feel no pain. This guy probably will have at best a 6-up feel no pain because of the Spider. Has a 2-up save, though, so that small arm fire, he at least has that 2-up for. Still rocking the 4-up invuln. But when he takes some damage, the first thing that's going to take damage are his little rocks floating around by him. So that can soak up some damage, making it that those las cannons, when they hit, taking 2 las cannons just to take down 1 rock. So he can soak up some of that damage coming through onto things like that first. He's a good target for a reanimator to be nearby. He reanimates, then have that do D3, and then have a Technomancer heal him. Couple cool things there that can trigger, and he does a lot of damage. He also has an artillery shot, which while it is not the strongest in the game, it is definitely better than what I currently have, which is 0. And that can be something that's nice to pick something off that's like a lone model that's trying to run away and do some actions for like, oh, I don't know, recover assets, something like that, or sabotage, someone who's just trying to hide and complete these actions. He might be able to finish those off. Otherwise, he still does smack, both shooting and combat. The rocks do a lot of damage as well. 8-inch move, so he can keep up with the Wraiths in a sense. And 3 different aura effects, that all of which I think out of this detachment I might be able to use in different scenarios. First of all, he's got the reroll 1s to hit and wound aura. While we get the full rerolls to hit, so we're not going to be just locked into that for those rerolls, the reroll 1s to wound can significantly help with the Wraiths to be able to get more damage out there. And as well could help with things like the Doomstalkers too, being able to reroll 1s to wound to get that extra damage through. And himself as well. Since he is not going to get the Canoptek buff because he's not a Cryptek or Canoptek for that matter. So some things like that might be helpful for him too. Then he's got plus reroll fail charges as well as +1 strength. So this will give the Wraiths to be able to push them from strength 6 to strength 7. So some of the toughness 12 vehicles, if they get stuck into, that almost gives us that +1 to wound effect, because now we're looking at 5s to wound. Intercessors and things like that, heavy intercessors and things like that, that are toughness 6, their Wraiths can get over and get to wound 3s into them. Still have the AP 1 to deal with for armor of contempt and stuff like that, but at least now it's only one time, one attack sequence. So if we have multiple things going in there, we can make them spend it early. And then last is ignoring any modifiers to characteristics. So this one, like in Death Guard matchup, I can basically just run with this and shut Death Guard's detachment ability down and just go, well, you're not doing this damage into me and around me. And Death Guard don't have a ton of long range efficiency. They're kind of get up in your face and do the damage there. So that could kind of help. Yeah, there are some definite long range weapons, but those aren't really efficient into the king, who's going to be able to keep the aura buff up there and make other things like the Wraiths not susceptible. You try and go -1 to hit, Wraiths ignored because you're minusing my weapon skill. So that's interesting for how he functions there. There might be some other scenarios that I look into things and go, oh, you're going to be, and it wouldn't even be all game because we can switch it up as we go. Oh, you have -1 to hit at long range. Okay, well, we're going to ignore that this turn and just shoot at you at our full ballistic skill. All right, that wraps it up. That is the list. So right now, upstairs in my painting studio, I have my Grey Knights. I've been working on them, getting them situated, because there is quite a bit I need to do there to have them even tournament ready. For now, I want to try with the Necrons, because as you can see, I have a lot less work to do, just some basing, to get these guys ready for tournament. So if I can find something that I like as much as or more than the Grey Knights and what I'm currently playing, I could shift over to Necrons. I have the time to. Especially since both armies, I know the data sheets very, very well. So either way around, this works out pretty well. With this detachment, I had an epiphany. I was thinking about the Nightbringer and how he functioned in the list and kind of controlled center. And I was started to look at, the fact that the Silent King is like 115 points more. And I was like, I'd consider him, but I'd have to change up a lot of stuff. I'm like, well, I have to shave 100 points for this. So I would probably, and then in my head, I started to create a list. I was like, just going around the house, doing some things. I'm just thinking Warhammer. It's like, I was like that meme. You see the meme where the woman's, the wife or girlfriend, whomever, is laying next to her husband and she's looking at him and she's like, he's probably thinking about other women. And he's just walking around going, and then it's like he's laying on his side going, so if I play Angron, or if I take the Silent King, and he's just thinking about Warhammer or thinking about cards, something like that. That was literally me. At one point I was walking and my wife looked at me and she's like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's just, because I'm just walking around looking at the ground, this stuff. And she's like, you just seem like you got something on your mind. I'm like, oh, I do. She's like, what's up? And I made the same joke to her that I made to some of my employees. I'm like, it's cool. You wouldn't understand. Except my wife now knows when I say that, I'm thinking about Warhammer, so she didn't ask anymore. My employee made the mistake, though, of saying, no, you can trust me. I can understand. Like, no, you don't get it. You really wouldn't understand. It's okay. I got this. I got a lot on my mind. And they pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was like, all right, fine. And so then I just word vomited all the 40K nonsense right at them. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm talking about Warhammer. This has been on my mind, and I've been thinking about this, and I can't shake it, and it's still something I'm thinking about from Army. They're like, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I'm like, exactly. You don't understand. I warned you. And then after that, the employee never asked again. They're like, oh, you have something on your mind? Yep. I was like, you wouldn't understand. Okay, I agree with you. But while I was concept driving this list, I took it and I just started. Then when I had a moment, I took it and threw everything in the app. And I think most of us do this probably when we're starting to work on an army. We come up with a concept. We have a general core of how we want the army to function. So we slap all the units into the list, and then we look at the points afterwards and figure it out. Do we have enough to get some other units in there to score secondaries? Are we spending too much and we cut some stuff, and are we still getting the army we want? And that's where we kind of move it up and down and try and get that spectrum to see if the army we want to play, if we're going to even be able to feasibly get that on the table. Because I'm sure a ton of us have built an army and went, oh man, I got this great list. And you put it in there and go, oh wait, that's 2,500 or 3,000 points. I guess that's why I really liked it, because yeah, I could beat a 2,000 point army with 3,000 points. I got this. With this army, when I put this into the army thing for the very first time, everything to it, the one enhancement, all the stuff, this list on the first try, just walking around theory hammering it, came to exactly 2,000 points. So from that, I feel like it is a destiny for this dynasty that we have to give this a try. In some ways, I feel like the Awakened Dynasty does bring more support to specific units with some of the stratagems, but it requires the investment of command points, which over the course of the game, it's going to be a back and forth sway on that. Things like the overlords and that can reduce the CP. Emotech can give you more CP, but in some of those ways, like Emotech doesn't provide as much else to the game. Where things like Gilliman or the Swarm Lord have other efficient roles that they can put into their armies. Emotech really doesn't. So I find it hard pressed to take him, and then the CP management concerns me with some of those aspects to it as well. However, Awakened Dynasty does still have some of the strongest stratagems that we look at for the different detachments. Why I keep pushing Canoptek Court is because of the fact of how reliable the to-hit rolls can be and how reliable the shooting can be. And with some of the units, when we start looking and go look at the durability, and we start building up into the 4-up invulns, a lot of the Canoptek units, such as the Race, the Doomstalker, and even the Reanimator, start floating to the surface. Granted, the Doomsday Arc does still have some good defense onto it. I mean, it's very durable in its own right, but it's also not as maneuverable as the Doomstalker with its tall size, but smaller base and smaller footprint as compared to the Doomsday Arc. So things like that are things that take into effect. The fact that the Overwatch of the Doomstalker is very strong and throws a lot of people off their game. The counter move that the Wraiths are able to implore, very strong. The early nerfed lone op strat where you're out of 18, you have to be out of 18, can help during the early turn, so I'm able to spread out my army more and be on the line to start pushing the field. So there are things that Canoptek Court does really, really well. The thing that Canoptek Court does really, really bad is the secondaries, because of the Scarabs not being able to do those actions. If OC0 or Scarabs in some way could do actions, we'd have a completely different conversation. I personally am looking forward to the fact that we're going to be seeing new cards soon, because as soon as when Pariah Nexus hit, changed everything. Changed everything for how I played Necrons, how everything went down. And since then, I really have kind of struggled to really put the good foot forward on Necrons during the Pariah Nexus missions, rules, and secondaries. So I'm hoping into the next card, we have a little bit of a shift over, and I'm going to be able to score and do some of those things as well. So yeah, a lot of this is going to be similar to last week, where I want to play that control game with having something big that can be big and threatening, except now that big and threatening thing is 115 points more, and it's going to provide more of an aura and effect for the rest of my army that I'm hoping we can capitalize on. Whether the king is going to scoot back and hang out with the Doomstalkers, giving them reroll 1s to wound and try to eat things up on the table, or he's going to press forward with the Wraiths and be able to buff them and give them the ability to provide more damage onto those objectives to keep that Canoptek control and ultimately score and win the game. Biggest focus is going to be trying to be on that scoreboard and just focus on trying to stay ahead all game. Last game, I was very close. I stayed ahead for a good portion of it, but then got swept at the end by just Lane's sheer overwhelming firepower. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. All right, guys, that's everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.